Hold up, I'm trying to... This stupid shit. Alright. Can you guys hear me? What up? Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. I want to make sure. I just want to fuck with this a little bit here. It's been a minute since I've been on here. Is that music? Is that music too loud? Man. All right. Hold up. Let me just... Yeah. All right. All right, people, what up? Um, yeah, it's been a minute. I just, rusty on this stupid ass app. Um, I just wanted to say there's been some really awesome comments in the Gaslight YouTube video. Thank you to Mark and Frost. Ruckus left a nice message there. I've been working and doing all kinds of crazy shit in the past 48 hours, so I didn't get a chance to get back to all that stuff. But I'm seeing it. It's awesome. Yeah, so basically, I want to start, there's like what? Not even a month until the trial here. And what I want to do is just I want to talk to people, get people on here, and push content about the case. I have a lot of stuff that I want to talk about over the summer. Interesting things that we're at some of those hearings and things like that. But before that happens, I want to get all the stupid shit out of the way, and that'll be this one. So I don't have anything really honestly planned for tonight. But just people can either I can ramble and do an extension of what you guys saw the other day. There's in a lot of those segments, there's things that are glossed over, just kind of whatever. I mean, there's a lot more detail. And I'm seeing a lot of comments on Reddit and other places, people saying, well, I'm going to, but people saying, oh yeah, he's lying. These screenshots. We redacted those out of courtesy, because it's not about pointing blame or doing anything like that. Regardless, it's about the informational aspect of it. I don't give a fuck like what people think about that. Like that is very important information that people need to understand on that side of what's going on. It's the value of that is very high. So thank you. But the redacted stuff was done out of courtesy. Like if people are so adamant that it's bullshit, like we can show you the real shit. I mean, in every single one of those cases. So I wouldn't go there if I were you people out there that are saying that it's all bullshit and that I went out of my way to make up all this stuff. It's not bullshit. It isn't. So yeah. But if you guys want to start asking questions, or I can just keep going on, I can just expound upon other things. It's your call. I'm just I'm staying firm in what I'm saying. Like I got involved in this beyond just having it be like a general interest, to get answers. I can't stress that enough. That's all I care about. And I got all the answers I needed from one side, and then I had to see what's going on the other side, and here we are. Yeah, exactly, Jinx. I'm not. Yeah, the extent that I would have to go to Photoshop or whatever they're trying to claim that I'm doing. Yeah, okay. There's no way. I don't even know how anybody could do that, but yeah. There was a couple of things that I didn't add in there. Yeah. Yeah, in Gambies, it really isn't about being nasty at all. And I know how how that looks and how it's perceived. The bottom line is though, is that part of the discourse, the way that it happened, again, you can see if somebody is trying to be dishonest or manipulative about something, it's not always, especially if they're good at it, if they do it as their job, it's not always going to be so easy to see that, like you have to look at the smaller details, and it requires examining conversations that those people are having with other people and compare with what's being said in front of different groups of people. And that's all, what I'm saying, like that is just, it's invaluable to be able to see that. And people need to know that. If you're somebody who's, just trying to decide what's going on, I mean, that's what we do. That's what we do in this space, so uh there was an opportunity there for people to see what's really going on, and that is what's really going on. I mean, superficially, everybody knows that I didn't think Rick Allen was the guy. I just didn't. I know he looks like Bridge Guy and stuff like that, but that initially I wanted to give that viewpoint a fair shake, and I tried to, but it's just it's not adding up. It just isn't. I'm sorry, but when okay, 2 weeks before, well, no, it was like maybe the middle of April, or the end of April. You got these guys going to a YouTuber's house to get a laptop or a hard drive or something like that of another YouTuber. Luis, you know what I'm talking about. And they're getting they're getting these. I mean, then they're going into this trial in May, and they're saying, "Oh, we're not ready." Okay. So after I read the Frank's motion, here's the thing. After I read the Frank's motion, the first line I was like, what? Because it's the first line is like Odinists killed Abby and Libby, and I'm just like, oh my god, dude. But then I'm thinking like, okay, maybe they're doing this because they want to kind of point out like how I thought maybe they were like, well, this is a ridiculous theory, but it's just as plausible as Alan doing it or something like that. I didn't really know where they're going. But the part that I really at first gave credence to was the last 10 pages or so. I felt that was, it at least had some merit to it. Hold on, my chat is lagging. I don't know why. But I guess I wasn't counting on that stuff being fabricated or maybe taken out of context. Something that was actually brought to my attention recently, and I didn't think about this, and then I started thinking about this. So when Alan's defense team was taken off the case, off Alan's or off the taken away as Alan's representatives or his legal representation, I should say, there was this like in chambers comment that was made where she was like, I'm going to, admonish you out there. And like they pretty much, my initial response to that was like, okay, well, if Rick Allen is just so obviously innocent, why are they worried about what Judge Gull would say to them out there? Because, if they're, I mean, they should be able to embarrass Gull, right? They should be able to say, hey, like, we know what we're talking about. You don't. But that's not what they did. They were like, no. And the more and more I thought about it recently, when I started kind of going back over it, was she really going to just talk about the leaked photos? Or was she going to point out stuff that they did with the Frank's memo in general? I mean, there are parts in that last 10 pages that I think that they just egregiously lied about. Like, just straight up, like, is Betsy Blair really trying to say these things that they're claiming? I mean, is that even true? I don't know. I mean, in some of these other things, I wouldn't have thought that those things could be lied about in an official court document, and maybe some of them are some variation of the truth or something, but those are the things that annoy me. And just, and again, it's like I said in the video, they have every right to represent him in that way if they want to. The thing is this thing has been going on. This online component for Delphi has been going on for a long time. And if you're going to come in here and you're going to play, this is our game. This is our matrix. You're going to plug into this. That might not be the smartest thing to do if you're trying to fuck around, because you might have found out that is not. You're not going to use me, and you're not going to use anybody else in the community in that way. Even if they're going to try and let you, it's not going to happen. So, yeah. Yeah, CJK. I think that's probably the reality of it, Indeed. Exactly. And there's a degree of they're sort of victims in this too. I'm not gonna, whatever, but there's accountability also. I'm not gonna, but yeah, the question is why. You know what I mean? Like how it was kind of portrayed to us initially, and from how I was to understand, was that these guys were so oppressed. They were so oppressed by Gaul and her rule, like her her iron fist ruling, that they needed, that they needed some of this information to kind of get out. Not the crime scene pictures though. That as much as people speculated on that, it's just simply not true. We didn't have those. We were probably the Knot was probably the last people to get the crime scene pictures. If there was anything going on with that was something behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, and I that would have been hard for that to have happened. But in terms of leaking information, oh yeah, and it was being kind of portrayed in this light as oh, this has to happen because the prosecution is just there at such an advantage, and so, but the reality of it is I just think that what was really going on is that they don't have a strong case for his innocence. And I understand it's the state's burden to prove that he's guilty, but when you're going to introduce a third party theory into it, now the onus is actually on you to prove that, and that is not true, Bob Mata, that the nexus is reached. You think the fucking nexus for somebody's to be a third party suspect is that the son of one of these guys dated one of the victims? Are you out of your fucking mind? No wonder you don't fucking practice law. You're a fucking idiot. That is not how that works. That does not reach the threshold. Okay? You have to have been at the crime scene. Period. I mean, that's it. You can't just pluck random people out of the fucking, out of thin air and just start dragging their name through the mud. I mean, that's an awful thing to even think should be allowed or even just acceptable. Like, who wants to have their name? I mean, and I don't care what Brad Holder or Elvis Fields or Patrick Westphal, who cares what their past transgressions are or whatever they've done. Whatever, they can take responsibility and whatever for that stuff. It doesn't matter. You don't just get to do that to people. So I understand why they're not allowed to do that. And the only thing is about the geofence stuff. I don't know. It's not clear to me what is going to be allowed and what isn't. I'm not in the camp that I don't think it's not important. It is important, but more information needs to come out. I believe that my understanding is that the reason why they're not going to be able to talk about some of those things is because the defense team is egregiously misrepresenting that information, and that's very clear. So, what's up, Ruckus? um, um, I don't know that they were asked to, but they were just, they had information. Well, it was like certain directions, like maybe like talk about this or getting cues, I guess, about what to kind of say, but not you have to say this. It wasn't like that, no. Um, but people have to understand too. Um, I I was the first person to reach out to Andrew Baldwin, me, and because I was like, hey, I seen him on Wish TV, and he was saying, he's saying we're asking for the public's help, and I said, okay, uh, you know, I had been under the impression at that time that there was some things that weren't exactly right with the investigation. Whether or not that's entirely true, I don't know. I think that some of that stuff was exaggerated, but whatever. That's what I believed at the time. So I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, I seen him on there. He said he was asking for the public's help." And he said the reporter asked him, they're like, "Oh yeah, do you think?" Because at that time, after when Rick Allen had just been arrested, everybody had been talking about Keegan Kline. Um, and so I I realized that he wasn't aware of who Keegan Kline was. So I said, okay, this guy needs some, he needs some extra information. But my whole point is um they they had from that, the ball was in their court. And no, it's not true that they had to go in the Ron Logan direction. That's just not true. That wasn't my requirement. It's just, if they want to go in the way I see it is like this. They were given some information, gave them a little bit of a head start, and they sat back, and instead of saying, "Hey, look, we can get down to the bottom of what happened," they looked at all the smorgasbord of theories out there, and they chose the most salacious, ridiculous one, and that, like, the absolute fringe believes with the Odinists, and they went with that one, and that's their choice to do that. It's just, we've been here for too long. There are people out there who have entire, like, hard drives filled with information on Brad Holder because of the early days of the investigation that could probably school the defense in what they know. And even most of them know that that he's not the guy. So that was their choice to go in that direction. So whatever. Like I said, this thing has been going on way longer, much longer than those guys arrived. So yeah. But yeah. I'm trying to think of things that just didn't make the cut for the video. There was okay, like, so there was a particular interaction. So okay, everybody asks about the where Rick Allen says he sees, like, a group of girls, right? How could he have seen a group of girls, and it could be, separate from Voorhees and Wilbur, right? And how is that possible? Well, Hoffman had an explanation. It was he described, like, two girls, and then like they were, like, babysitting or something like that. So it couldn't possibly be these girls, right? That it wasn't the girls that were in the PCA that we had heard about for years from Doug Rice beforehand. So that's the explanation for that. So, okay, there's these other girls. I'm assuming in a town of 3,000, you guys went out and you found these girls, right? Um, because if you didn't, it's bullshit. You know, i- if we don't hear anything about that, like it's lip service. Like you're going to say something like that. Oh, hey, look over here, and then people go for it, and then nothing, no follow up on it. Okay, like because I never heard anything about it after that. Maybe they're going to. I don't know, but where are these girls? Right? Um, here's the thing. Um, yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's no. Well, so here's the thing. Like I've been there when it's been really hot, and I've been there when it's been really cold. And both times there's a lot of foot traffic there. So it's not totally unimaginable, but again, it's a small town. Go find out who these girls are supposedly. If they don't exist, then you're full of shit. That's all there is to it. But here's the thing that I also don't like that I'm seeing a lot now, and it's a lot with like newer people to the case who who you know so you got to think about the people who are most affected by this. And as much as we all want to know what happened, believe me, I want to know just as bad as anybody else does. The people who are the most affected by this are the families, the victims' families, right? Could you imagine? They don't have the option of playing what if or playing theoretical, like whatever. Uh, if that was your family member, would you approach this case in a way, well, you can't say that that person wasn't there, oh, well, in an alternative universe, well, maybe Bridge Guy's, maybe his jacket's like neon green or some shit. Go fuck yourself, okay? That's not how you would actually ever look at this case if it was your family member. That's how you have to look at this. You have to look at it like, that's how you get to the bottom of stuff. You don't do it by trying to throw out and I understand defense lawyers, that's what they do. The reasonable doubt, whatever, but this is weak. This is weak, the stuff that they're saying. So, yeah. But there's just a way to approach this where you're serious and you want to look at things in a serious way, and then there's a way to be like, well, you know this could happen, or you can't say this didn't happen. That's just a load of shit. Like maybe like on a surface level you can look at things like that, but then expound upon that. There and there's nothing over there. It's all, especially with the onus stuff, bullshit. And then I'm seeing like I saw some people posting the timeline of Brad Holder, and I actually saw somebody who I think is pretty intelligent make the most stupidest comment that I could even think of when they were detailing the times where he was supposedly punching out of work. And it literally is he's punching out at a place where he's like 45 minutes away from the crime scene. And they're like, I want to know where his damn geofence information is and blah, blah, blah. Like, like that is the biggest case of gaslighting right there too, with the defense, where they just gloss over the fact that he has an alibi. Being punched into your job is like the standard alibi. There's like the gold standard alibi is being punched in, right? So, yeah, that's crap. Yeah. And basically, another thing, yeah, another thing too that I'm going to say is there, yeah, well, there's in due time here, people are going to understand a lot more about why what I did was the smart thing to do, because yeah, people need to realize too. I mean, another thing that happens over on the defense Maxi side people like sort of they idealize Alan because nobody knows anything about him. Nobody's there isn't anything to really put to him. You know what I mean? Like there's no voice. You've never even heard his voice. So that's something that people don't understand. You don't know him at all. Um, there, the minute he opens his voice in the courtroom, everybody might just be like, oh, and it might just be that obvious. So, I mean, just when that trial happens, people are going to start to see. But yeah, exactly. Exactly, Ruckus. Like that is the nexus right there. And anybody who wants to tell you it's not is full of shit. You have to at least have been there, or you have to, people have a witness saw you there. Of course, video footage is great, but it doesn't have to be that. But just some, semblance of the fact that you were there. That's why, like, I believe, and this isn't like a corruption thing. It's just I believe that in the year prior to Allen's arrest, they really wanted it to be Keegan Kline. They were trying to think of different ways of how they could, look back and see, like, did we miss something? And then they started examining the contact because that's another thing that Hoff said too, is that it is true that Keegan Kline was one of the last people who were in contact with the girls. That's legit. So they were probably like hung up on that. And the thing with Keegan is that Keegan is he's guilt free, right? He's a pedophile. Nobody's going to feel sorry if by chance he's not the right guy. But you want to know why they could never come out and say that it was him? Because he wasn't fucking there. He didn't meet the nexus, right? So, yeah, if they would have wanted it to be somebody, they would have wanted it to be him. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Ivy Push brings up a good point about the families and stuff. I want to be careful about how I say this. So when I was on the murder sheet and I talked about like how I started doing this because of, my Reddit account was an account that I used to just talk about TV shows like Mr. Robot or whatever. And, I just think about this. It's like, okay, imagine in 10 or 20 years when this is all done or whatever, let's say, let's not use Delphi as an example. Let's just say like a cold case or something like that, or even a fictional show, like The Killing or True Detective or something like that. If somebody popped into your living room when you're watching this show and said, like you're talking to your spouse or something, and they say, like the dad, I'm looking at the dad or whatever, in a fictional show, or even if it's a real life, and somebody popped in and said, oh, you know what? You can't talk about the family like that. Okay. Like that's how I approach it. But I would never I would never ever go after a family member or anything like that. But like, you should be able to think, but there's a difference between somebody just saying like, oh, I just had this thought. And then somebody going out and like bashing the families and thinking that they could say whatever they want, free reign. That is despicable. And I'm just going to say this. That was something that was a rule in the knot. That was, something that me and my former YouTube partners all believed. But as time went on, and you had this dialogue ramping up and stuff like that, that understanding sort of kind of went to the wayside a little bit, to where there was a little bit more tolerance, I guess you could say, of that kind of rhetoric, and that is not something that I've ever been okay with. It's not okay to do that. So yep, and that's that. Bob saying Brad and Andy cry themselves to sleep every night. We were told this. I was told the same thing. I was told that the first summer they drove from Westville back to, um, where do they stay? Is it, I don't know. I forgot where the Baldwin's offices or whatever. Where they said they drove hours back and forth crying, tears streaming down their face. But you know what? Here's another thing though that I found out too. Uh, Andrew Baldwin is also like a very performative person. Like he's he's the type of person who can just like cry at the drop of a hat. Yeah. So I don't know how much that really means. Um, but I'm sure he's probably a good lawyer. He's probably, all the things, but it's starting to sound a little bit more like, I don't know who's the guy who represented Casey Anthony. I forget that guy's name, but yeah, so I know. Yeah. It's funny because at work, I started bringing it up too. And now I got a bunch of people at work. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It grips you once you get into it, man. It's it's a very elusive case. Even, before and after Allen's arrest, I mean, everybody wants to know, but yep, Jose Baez. Yep, there you go. That's true. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. The thing the biggest thing that I've learned in all this is, I guess because I don't come from the legal world, is I guess I wouldn't have thought that they would go that far, that as far as they did. You know what I mean? Um, yep. We'll go on there. We gotta, yeah. I want to try to knock out as many lives and appearances as I can with the time that we have. But yeah, we gotta do well. You know what we gotta do, and then we'll we'll go on there. Probably it's not gonna be next weekend. Maybe one of the days this week coming up. But we'll be in touch. Yeah, no, my back's already all jacked up. But do your former YouTube co-hosts actually believe Richard is innocent? I think they do. They did. I think that. Well, I'm noticing some of the little things that people send me and stuff like that. It's now he's constitutionally innocent. Which, again, would you worry about the Constitution if that was your family member? I mean, I'm not saying that it's not important. He has rights. Sure, he does. But okay, on one end of the spectrum, you have this unlikely, unrealistic scenario where a murder is filmed and they have absolutely conclusive proof. That's almost rare unless the murderer films it themselves or something like that. Like it's almost never the case. In Delphi, we're lucky enough just to have the audio and video that we We have, but it's just very rare. But you're never going to have a definitive, like 100% slam dunk, um, you know, verification that you have the right guy. But but one way to circumvent even that stuff is to get a confession of something that's, that nobody would know, right? And yeah, I feel like that how they arrive at that, even though there might be rules and things like that about how they're supposed to do it, once they get it, it doesn't matter. I'll use the same analogy that I used when I was on the other side. It's like it's like if um if let's say uh Conor McGregor is going to fight Michael Chandler or something like that, in this fight that they've been talking about for years now, and they show up in Vegas, and in the week leading up to the fight, they go into a bar and they get into a fight, and they're in street clothes and all that stuff, and you see Conor get just wailed on, gets knocked out. Okay, um, they get suspended, fine, the fight never happens, but there's this recording of the fight, right? You got your answer. You got what you came and paid for. You know your answer. Michael Chandler whooped his ass, or if it's the other way around, Conor beats him. But it's the same thing. You get to the answer, right? All the other stuff has nothing to do with us. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, Ruckus, I'll be in touch, man. None of us has been sworn in the court of law. We don't need to abandon common sense. Yeah, you're right. This is like we talk about stuff, and that's even my bigger point, Duchess, is a lot of people get into this and they start and they're like, man, I want to know, and then it becomes this stupid thing where they want to play lawyer online. It's just they're I don't know, they feel like it's this opportunity. That stuff really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like if in the course of all this stuff, Rick Allen said something that happened at the crime scene, or that he has definitive proof, like as much as it, there might be rules and things like that, like let them hash that shit out. The fact of the matter is if he knows things that happened, there's no amount of psychosis or whatever that is going to make me believe otherwise, that he's not the killer. Sorry. I can understand about caring about constitutional rights, but when it gets so extreme to make it feel like the victim families were evil opponents. Yeah, it's and that's where, like, okay, so like in the breakdown of the discourse between me and Courtney and Angela, you see, this is where one of the things that started happening was, if I ever had a question in the past and I'd bring it up, I'd be like, well, and it happened throughout. Even when we were on the Unraveling and doing lives, I'd be like, well, wait, what about this? What about this? There was a decent answer that would come out. When you start saying that the constitutional rights are the reasons why this isn't okay, that's some bullshit. That is some serious bullshit. That's when you got to start being real honest with yourself. Like it's those are not when those are your answers as to, well, why are they suppressing this thing and making it his statement in October and making it about Miranda rights and stuff like, well, his constitutional rights are violated. Go fuck yourself. That doesn't even fucking matter. Like, honestly, who cares? You're not a fucking lawyer. And even if you are, even if somebody is, like, I mean, that's just, dude, who cares, man? Like, he fucking said that shit. He said some shit that, you can't deny. That's all that matters. Alex, what up? I agree. Yeah. And that happens on here. You know, and I've gotten caught up in stuff before too, and done shitty things and stuff like that. Nothing, it's like I was saying, the worst thing that I probably did in this most is like, oh, like insult somebody's appearance or say something, whatever. And that's mean and shitty, and I shouldn't do that. And I can, always be better. But when my thing is when you start trying to affect people's real lives, um, that's just something that has to stop. There's no reason to do that shit. So I agree. Yep. I guess having 11 lawyers isn't significant. He is getting better representation than the vast majority of defendants. It appears that way now. Yeah, he's got like a whole he's got like a whole entourage with him. And again, why do they need all those people? And then you've got like Nick, and then what's the other guy's name? The guy that the one other dude they brought on. And Nick's like, whatever, let's do this. And they're all like, oh, we can't, we're not ready. Beyond the evidence, I can't wait to hear what the prosecution actually has for evidence. I think it's going to blow up the defense. I think that whatever they have is going to be, yeah, I think it's going to be open and shut. That's again, actions speak louder than words, and Nick was ready to go in May. They weren't. So, and I know they're going to say, "Oh, it was, they rug pulled us on the Odinism stuff or whatever." But like, they when they filed for, see, and this is what pisses me off is, so they filed for this block of time, and if they needed more time, they were supposed to ask for it, and then when she gives it to them, then they say, "Oh, it's not enough time." Like they it's almost like they plan that, it was like their little parachute. Yeah, there was times where I wasn't being reasonable. That's fair. So, but yeah, if I try to explain it, it'll just sound like I'm justifying it, and there's no justification. All I can say is that you know, I would never cross the threshold into affecting somebody's real life, family life, or um, their job or anything like that. Like that's people need to stop doing that. Yeah, that's what I was to believe too, and it's just not true. I mean, what are some other things that might have seemed planned, but you believed at the time? Um, I'm trying to think. Well, the one thing that I and I mentioned this in the video too is that I got excited about, because when I did believe that Rick Allen was innocent, and Kara Weineke had said that when she was with Brad and Andy, that she said on I think Defense Diaries or whatever, she says, "Oh yeah, if they have what they say they have, then this is going to be a very easy case for them to win." Um, And then I see in the private chats, all she's talking about is the Odinist stuff. And it's like, oh my God. I mean, like, like, that's just ridiculous. And so there's this weird thing too, where it's like this mirror. So it's like, um, you know, people can say, well, the prosecution hasn't shown what they, shown their entire hand and stuff like that. And, like people on the prosecution side are waiting to see what they have. Well, the argument is like, well, we don't see anything. But now it's fair to say the same thing to the defense team. If the defense team, if when you see these conversations going on behind the scenes, and I raise concern, and you don't know what they've seen in Discovery, you don't know what they have. They're going in the Odinist direction. That's all I need to fucking know. Like, that's ridiculous. So, yeah. Hey, Paul, do you think Kathy Allen is lying about thinking Rick was in bed all day and ready up for normal supper? I don't know. And so that information actually doesn't come from Hoff. So I want to be careful about how I say that. It's just somebody else who was associated with the defense team who is like no longer on there. And it's just the claim. The only thing I can say is that along with that claim was information about his depression history and things like that. And that ended up being true. So, but yeah, that's the claim, that he was in bed. He was dealing with depression, and she left work thinking he was going to go to work. He didn't. And when she came back, he was in the same exact position he was in. And then she was like, let's, get up and let's eat supper. And it was like 6 p.m. That's just what they said. But again, no indication that there's an alibi for the time that people want to know about, which I do admit is a tight time frame. So, and here's another thing, and I want to talk more about this beyond this live that I'm doing here, where I just kind of want to get some stuff talked about. Okay, so it's a cold case for 6 years before Allen's arrest. Because of that, and because there's video and audio, it's easy to assume that every single move that BG made was just precise and the right move and stealth and all these things. But that's not necessarily the case. You know what I mean? Like, people idealize it and stuff, and that's what I did too. Like, it's like, I think I was talking to Gambies before about this, and I think she brought up a really good point when she says that when the first time she went to the trails, she immediately said, the most obvious escape route is the most obvious escape route is the cemetery. And I agree. But you know what? It doesn't mean that that's how he left. Just because it's the most, like, retrospectively looking back, there's a million reasons why he might have done this or done that or whatever. And at the end of the day, as much as, it's hard for me to believe that he walked down 300, muddy and bloody, or, whatever. Sometimes it just do really be like that, and that it's possible. So you have to realize that. I'm late, so sorry if you addressed this, but do you believe RA acted alone? I do, and the reason why I do is because I feel like with everything, especially now that's gone on, if he didn't, there would be an indication of that. If there's other criminals involved, like, they probably would have already talked. They've probably gotten busted for other things and things like that. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I know that they thought that, they mentioned that in that one of those first hearings. So I guess I'd be curious as to why they said that, but there might be, yeah. Tobor, Paul, I don't know what or who to believe at this point. I did view your video from yesterday. I didn't realize you were going live until today. Do you still believe that it was Ron Logan? So Ron Logan, there's things that I want to know about Ron, but no, it's not Ron Logan. Because people will understand why it's not Ron Logan. There's a reason why. And Angela, there's going to be a special moment for you. Believe me. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say about that. when you realize why. Agree. Alan would have sung like a canary if others were involved in any aspect. Yeah, I just tend to believe that. I mean, I could be wrong on that, but I mean, you know, I think that Rick Allen is a weird dude. That's what I think. I think that he's not your typical. I don't think he fits into any mold that people have. I guess people had told me before, like when like when we talk to Dr. B and stuff like that, and talk about the archetypes and the profiling stuff. There are just some people that don't fit into those types of molds, and I think Alan is just he's an odd duck. There's one thing that I think is kind of interesting though, that I have not heard a lot. Well, I would see people bring it up sometimes, and but there's like a certain way of looking at Alan in the context of everything that's being said now that I have not seen anybody really go into a lot of depth about. But I mean, people don't I don't know. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna talk about that, but it's just I guess what I would like to know is how law enforcement determined, or not law enforcement, but Alan's defense team determined this, like, oh, there's no like Odinism connection to Alan or something like that. Like, how do you know that? Like, I mean, and I don't believe that there is any Odinism connection to him, but like, how did they come out and say this? But yeah, we'll see. Sorry I'm late. I've been putting out a few fires. Excellent video. And please, everyone, like and share this vid to spread awareness for rebranded channel. Thank you, Aspen. Excluding geofencing is only when it comes to third-party stuff. Defense can't just blame random people who are cleared, right? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's see the geofencing for Alan stuff. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, like, people don't realize. I mean, you literally, when you bring somebody's name up in a trial like this, their lives are ruined. That's it. I mean, there should be a very high threshold for the nexus to be reached in terms of I mean, that's awful. I mean, to think that somebody could just bring, I mean, okay, people who are followed the case early on, you know, there was every damn person in Delphi was looked at, and their lives were affected in one way or another about this shit, you know. So, uh, and that was bad enough for defense lawyers to come in and just be able to just, you know, willy nilly grab these people and ruin their lives. That's not okay. It's not okay. LE made mistakes, obviously, but they redeemed themselves. They got the right guy. I think that's a correct assessment. I think that, you know, and people also don't realize too. It's like they want to compare different cases or they want to do different things like that, and it's entirely possible that they have made mistakes in the past, maybe even on the Delphi side of things, of the Delphi murder side of things, and still got the right guy. Like that's a possible, you know, there's a world where that can happen, and so. Tyler Ski, people keep repeating that everything is being excluded. Everything that is not relevant is being excluded. Exactly. So I'll give you an anecdote for that. There was a person, and I won't name their name, but when we first started the knot, it was actually an earlier iteration of the knot, and Meerkat knows about this. It was actually kind of a funny but kind of mean thing, but it had to happen. We had somebody join the server when it was much smaller, and this person, and this is back way before Alan was arrested. We were talking about theories and things that we, you know, believed and whatever, and everybody's had their pet theories at the time and whatever. And this person was very insistent that, you know, the creek was flooded. FEMA took over the whole entire creek. The houses along the creek were not real houses; they were owned by the government, and there was this whole thing. And it was like everybody was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! This is not true. Don't say this." You know, because we're trying to have a conversation here, and it's just that's so like egregiously ridiculous. Like, you know, well, and this person did a ton of research on the creek and the ecology of the creek and the water levels and things like that, and they were insistent that the girls died in the creek and all this stuff. And their argument was that they were entitled to their theory because they did so much research. Okay. And that may be, but no, you're not. You're not entitled to it when the facts just don't support it, right? You can have your theory all you want. But that is the exact type of thing in the courtroom that Judge Gull is trying to prevent, because what the defense team can do is they can bring in all this research on they can bring in all this research about Odinists, and they could totally, you know, saturate the conversation in the courtroom about Odinists. And then Nick McClelland is going to be like, I don't care about Odinists. They didn't have anything to do with it. And then all they have to do is look to the jury and say, see, see. But in reality, it's just like what Andrew Baldwin does in the memo, in the Franks memo. He glosses over the fact that Brad Holder is punched into work when the murders occurred, or like shortly before, and the time, and that is the litmus test right there for the kinds of people that are going for this stuff. They're totally ignoring it just because Andrew Baldwin says it's a weak alibi. It is not a weak alibi. That is not a weak alibi. It's the gold standard alibi. Like when people say somebody's at work, they're punched in, usually that's it. It's that person's crossed off the list, and that's exactly why those guys were not looked at that seriously after that. So, but that's what they'll do in this court case, is if they make it all about, and then my God, this thing about this lady who's like an art teacher. No disrespect to people who are art people, but I mean, like, this art teacher is your go-to Odinist like expert. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? And they're trying to say that this is the perfect person. That's but how many shoes? I know. Well, and even that, you know, this whole thing about, I guess, like Kelsey saying that there was a shoe in this, she obviously misspoke. This other shoe, this fifth shoe and all this stuff. Ugh. I mean, they're hanging on to the stupidest shit. The crime sleepers. When Alan confirmed he passed the teenage girls, it really cemented his arrival time. I've said it before, he became the main eyewitness for the timeline. The girls had no idea who the man was. I have a lot to say about about that. I kind of wanted to save it for later, but I mean, well, I'll just talk about it anyways. So there was a comment that was made recently on I don't know, one of these. Somebody brought it up on Twitter. I saw a screenshot where somebody was trying to say that it was never discussed that the person who the girl saw was a short person. And I have a Reddit thread from 2021 or maybe 22 before Alan's arrest, way before anybody knew who Alan was. And I specifically asked because per Doug Rice, both DP and Riley Voorhees, both, I thought it was very odd that they both indicated that he was a very short-statured man. Everybody who's filed the case knows that. And these defense maxis on online are trying to pretend like that never happened. It's just too much of a coincidence for that to just be, like just happenstance. I don't believe that. I think that and I've talked to Meerkat about this a little bit too. I have my own theory about DP, and I think he saw Alan. I don't believe that he saw a short guy. And if I'm not mistaken, he says that he saw a guy in a hoodie. And if you look at that hoodie that Bridge guy has on, it's brown. So, yeah, but we'll talk more about that. But I want to talk about it with somebody else on here. Okay, the flood person tried to say that the literal island in the middle of the creek vanished during times of higher water levels, so that's why they didn't cross the creek. So here's another thing about the crossing of the creek that is interesting to me. And I know you've been there before, Frost. So like, I've always wondered about the shoe prints, right? And that's something that I wonder about is, think about the disparity between somebody like Ron Logan, who was a giant, compared to Rick Allen, right? If there's a shoe print that they can find where you see three sets, the girls, and then their assailant, that's, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be something like that. And maybe the investigation missed that. I don't know. But I would think that that there's some indication around there. I get it. The place was pristine and all this stuff they say, but there's just no, there's no way that there isn't something that indicates their foot patterns, right? So. Yeah, and I guess in addition to that too, something that's interesting is with, and I'm going back to this comment again. You can be an intelligent person, and sometimes people who are intelligent in general, higher IQ people, they can think about things in ways, more abstract ways. So they can sort of let common sense get away from them. You know what I mean? Somebody that comes to mind, it's like, like what they not to use another MMA analogy, but Conor McGregor always called Nate Diaz skinny fat because he was like obviously skinny and in shape, but he had like a fat body. I always say like Michael Osbrook is a smart, dumb guy. Like he's really smart, but he's dumb. And that makes me wonder what Kathy heard, that he had in fact talked to Doolin. She had believed he was sleeping all day. Wouldn't that have shook her up a little? So that is going to be, people will find out what's going on with that. It's we don't even have a month until this is all gonna get dug up. Again, there's a way to look at this thing as somebody who wants to know and find out what happened, and then there's a way to do this thing where you're playing, oh, what if you can't say this, you can't say that. Like, that's super disrespectful. I feel like that's really disrespectful. But like, maybe preliminarily you can look at things in that way, but there's got to be something to it. All right, I got about 10 minutes round robin. You guys got what you got? And then after today, I want to get more into, like, I don't want to do this stuff about the, I mean, as needed, but I don't want to keep going back to Courtney and Angela. They got their own thing going on. I don't need to be promoting them. You described it really well in your video when you said if we just gave it time, it might become clear why Ellie did certain things or why Judge Gull ruled this way, etc. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I was alluding to even just earlier with when the whole thing happened with when she took him back into their chambers, and she said, I'm going to admonish you if you guys don't remove yourself from the case. We were to believe it was all related to the the crime scene pics, but I don't think that's what it was. I think because, again, if they were innocent or whatever of doing that, then what's if they didn't do anything wrong and Rick Allen is truly innocent and they believe that, I wouldn't be afraid of a judge. I just wouldn't. I think what she was going to do is, I think she was going to go into some of the Frank's motion stuff, and she was going to be like, you guys, I'm going to tell people how much you actually were lying in that Frank's motion beyond, any kind of reasonable, lying. It's excessive. And I think people are going to see that. Paul, do you think the trial will happen next month? Yeah, I do. I think that Carroll County is they're strapped for cash, and I think that it's set in motion now, and it's they don't have the capital to be playing around with it. Unfortunately, I wanted it to be a little bit later just because I wanted to do more lives and stuff like that. I had to take the summer off for a number of reasons, some of which were actually related to this and stuff like that. But yeah, I would have liked to have done this week played out much earlier in the summer, but yeah. Bob Mata, his involvement behind the scenes is fuckery. I he's probably not a bad guy, but like, I don't, I'm not saying he's like the worst person in the world. I just don't appreciate the way that he doesn't really know the case, and he comes on and he just says all this dumb shit, and everybody's like, oh, Bob Mata, like, he's like, this dude is not an accomplished lawyer. He's fucking like whatever. He does, and he does not know the fucking case. So he's just trying to throw his name into the fucking mix to fucking, bolster his views and stuff like that. Because Delphi's a fucking, and he has every right to do that. I'm just saying, we've been here longer than you, dude, and we know way more. You're not gonna, you're not tricking any of us into your fucking nonsense. There's two types of killers, organized and disorganized. Do you think this was a work of an organized killer? That's a really great question. The box cutter thing threw me off, and I'm not going to go into the box cutter thing because I have a lot to say about that. But I want to talk about it with Meerkat and have a real conversation about it, and just by myself, it's not. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the fact that it's a cold case, or it was a cold case, or it felt like a cold case for 6 years. People initially assume that that means that everything was done in a particular way or in the best way, and that's not necessarily true. You know what I mean? Sometimes things are just fucking weird. You know what I mean? And things just happen fucked up sometimes. So it may have been more disorganized than people initially had thought. Okay. All right. Does anybody got anything specific? We got 5 minutes. Hold up. What? Yeah, I'll be in touch. Let me. Hold up. So I don't. Yeah, like I don't know a ton about the Flora case. I will say one thing that. Well, I wasn't happy about some of the stuff I saw this summer on some lives. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about it, but I don't. Whatever happened for the online part of it, I know that there's like different feelings one way or another, but the stuff that that people were doing, this weird I don't know, the people trying to act like they own Galen, one person in particular that what I saw this past summer was kind of gross, and threatening lawsuits and stuff like that. Like that's yeah, I'm not going to make an analogy that I shouldn't, but it really, yeah, yeah, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail just because I don't, but Yes, I agree, Jinx. That's not the optics on that are so awful. You know what I mean? It it's just, but I don't. The thing is, I don't know a ton about that, so it's like I don't. But yeah, just gross. Agree. Ivy push. He's actively working to poison the jury pool. My question is whether or not Baldwin and Rozzi knew about his communication with Yellow Jacket Moth. So, like, my understanding is early on, no, but that doesn't mean that that's true. But I think they absolutely did, but they had to distance themselves from it. But they I know that when the contempt stuff was going on, they absolutely were in touch with them, but that was specifically for that. But you know, you can guess. I don't know. I agree. It should be on the email. Should be on there on the website. Thanks for doing this live, Paul. Yeah, you bet. All right, we're gonna wrap it up, but I plan on doing. I plan on being present here, so I'm not leaving you guys for long. So um, I really, yes, Aspen, we are going to do a West Memphis 3 one, and yeah, we have stuff to. Yeah, there's going to be some. Obviously, after November, especially, we'll have we'll have a lot of time on our hands, but we will for sure. Um, I'd love to do one of those with you, man. Um, but yeah, all right, guys. I will see you guys really, really soon. And if I know how to do this right, let's see.